Guess who didn't stick to the TBR? Me. Are we shocked at all? No, I'm not. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dominique, but I go by Dom. And in today's video, we are going over my November reading wrap up. Yes, finally. I almost didn't film this video, and it only because it feels like November was so long ago. And I feel like I read these books so long ago, but I feel like I would be robbing you guys if I didn't share all the great books that I got to read for the month of November. So let's just jump right into it. November was a fantastic reading month for me, and I hope it was for you as well. There were a few books that I mentioned in my last, I think, 3 or 4 videos that I read in the month of November. So I'm not going to go into great detail about them today. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do you a solid, right? And then, of course, I know because we're family, right? I know that you're going to go and watch the video if you haven't yet, right? To get my detailed thoughts and all that other stuff, right? Right? Yeah, yeah, and I love you for it. But first, before we go any further, I just want to acknowledge all of the new subscribers. Hello and welcome. Welcome to my channel. So glad and so happy to have you here. Shout out to Shaughnessy for featuring me in your creators to subscribe to video. I greatly appreciate it. Myself and all of the other fabulous Black creators that you featured. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you haven't checked that video out yet, go ahead, do yourself a favor and check it out. You might find some new content to consume. Yeah. If you watched my November TBR video, you know that I was aiming to read about 10 or 12 books for the month of November. Really just trying to tackle my physical TBR and my Libby TBR. Yes, I know. It was a very, very ambitious goal, but guess what? We hit 11. Yes, we got to knock 11 books off of my TBR, and I'm so happy. Most of them weren't on the physical TBR, unfortunately. But hey, who's judging? Guess who didn't stick to the TBR? Me. Are we shocked at all? No, I'm not. As I mentioned, I am a mood reader. So typically that is what determines what I'm going to read next. So, hey, at least we got some reading done. The goal is to always read at least one book. So we read 11 and I'm not mad at it. Not at all. All right, so we have Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I think I already mentioned this book in my November TBR. I'll pop it here, and then I'll also pop the timestamp here. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I don't think I was able to talk about the characters too much. I really enjoyed the characters in this book and the world that she created. This is book 1 in the Skyland series. I also have This Could Be Us, but I didn't get a chance to read it. And then book 3 is coming out, I believe, on May 4th, featuring Hendrix. If you read the book, you know exactly who I'm talking about. She's one of the friends of Yasmin in this book. However, this book is a second chance romance, and it features the Wades, Yasmin and Josiah Wade. And they are navigating singlehood, co-parenting, and running a business together. This book was really, really good. This is the first book that I ever read by Kennedy Ryan, and I think it made me a super fan. I enjoy her writing, and she's a really great storyteller, okay? If you haven't read this book yet, this book deals with loss, recovery, healing, things of that nature. Kennedy Ryan does an amazing job of providing you with trigger warnings at the beginning of her books, so you know what you're getting yourself into. I absolutely loved the mention of mental health and advocating for therapy in this book. I'm a big advocate for therapy. Big, 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 big. And I can attest to the benefits of it. I can't imagine how difficult it is to be with somebody who feels like they don't have any work to do and they don't feel the necessity. This book does a great job of that, and I thank Kennedy Ryan for showcasing the importance of it. So that's another point to add to the thoughts that I have for this book. I think I liked all of the characters in this world. However, I did not care for the chef. And I know I'm not the only person that feels that way. I think that she was so out of line. And she had some nerve, okay? And so did Josiah. I have thoughts. I really want to say more. I really do want to say more, but I don't want to ruin it for those who may not have read this story yet. I know that it's not a new release, but I say all that to say this is a really good book. If you're looking for a romance novel with some depth, you definitely have to give this one a go. Okay, so I know that I said I wasn't going to talk about these books because I've already gone over this one in particular in pretty great detail in a previous video. So I will pop it here, and then I'll pop the timestamp right here for you to check out because you made a promise to me. You promised me that you were going to check it out, right? But for those of you who may not get the opportunity to, this book follows Hester Wyatt and Galen Vachon. Hester Wyatt is an ex-slave and a conductor on Michigan's Underground Railroad. Galen Vachon, who's also the Black Daniel, is another conductor, a famous conductor from the North. On one fateful night, Galen is brought to Hester, badly beaten, on the brink of death. Under the care of Hester, he lets her know that there is a traitor in their midst, in their little community. And she doesn't believe him, but who the hell would? He was rude, and their first encounter did not go off well at all. I'll leave it at that. If you are interested in reading this story, I definitely recommend. It is so good. If you are a historical fiction girly, I'm sure you've already read this book. And if you are trying to get into reading historical fiction, you'll definitely like this one. We love Auntie Bev. We love Auntie Bev. I don't know about y'all, but she's now my aunt, honorary. My aunt. Although this book is not historical romance, we are staying in line with the historical genre. And next we have James by Percival Everett. So James is a reimagining or a retelling of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This book is actually in the perspective of Jim, the slave. Jim is James. So this story follows Jim. Jim finds out that his owner is planning to sell him to a slaver in New Orleans. So what he does is he runs away and tries to formulate a plan of coming back to rescue his wife and daughter. Meanwhile, Huck fakes his own death, just trying to escape the clutches of his very violent father. Both Jim and Huck find themselves down the Mississippi River, and what trials they face. That's how the story begins, right? Oh, Percival. What an amazing writer and storyteller. I really enjoyed this story. I enjoyed this story more than I thought that I would. I'm not sure that you need to read the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn in order to read this story, because I didn't. But if you are interested, like myself, I am planning to read that book later on down the line. So I have to say this. I think I did myself a great service by listening to this book on audio and not just reading it. And typically, I like to read and listen at the same time. Of course, if I have things going on in life, it just makes it that much easier. But at the time of me getting around to listening to the audio, I had just a lot going on. So I didn't get a chance to physically read the book as I was listening. And man, I feel like I was slightly robbed of the joy that everybody got when they read this book. Thankfully, it didn't take away from the brilliance of Percival Everett's writing. So, I will say that. But if you have the opportunity and you can read it, definitely read the book. Ditch the narration. There's nothing wrong with a narrator. I just don't like how he narrated this book. Yeah. And I'm just being honest, okay? I'm just being honest. Everybody may not feel the same way that I feel about that, but I just wanted to share. Without giving too much away, one of my favorite parts about this book was Jim's dreams and the visits that he received. So good. And how the Black folks really had the white people confused. That was very funny to me, okay? They really were playing the role well. I will say that. If you like historical fiction, I definitely say give this a go. You will not be disappointed. All right, so let's get into some fantasy. Next, we have Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is book 1 in the 6th World series. I have thoughts about this series, but I'll tell you at the end. This is an urban fantasy. I don't think that I've ever shared the type of fantasy that I prefer to read. I haven't really dove into the world of epic fantasy, but if I were going to choose between the two, urban fantasy, that's my guy. This is Rebecca's debut novel. She has an array of novels now, but this one in particular is her debut novel, and it was so good. This book follows Maggie Hosky. She is a monster slayer or monster hunter in a post-apocalyptic world. All of the bodies of water on Earth have risen and has flooded most of the Earth. So she is on what would be formerly have been known the Navajo reservation called the Deneth. In this fallen world, gods and heroes walk the earth, but so do monsters. Hence, Maggie being a monster slayer. In this world, people on the reservation have been gifted with supernatural abilities. Maggie's supernatural abilities are speed and killing. In the story, Maggie is asked to rescue a girl who has been kidnapped by a monster, and what she discovers is horrific. She unwillingly enlists the help of an unconventional medicine man by the name of Kai, who is assisting her in finding out what is going on the reservation and what and who is behind all of these monster sightings and killings. This book is gory, it's graphic, it's violent. If you're into that, you'll like this. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I almost did not show it to you guys because I think that Rebecca has abandoned this series. I don't know how often authors do that. I'm sure that they do. There is a second book in this series, which I do have, Storm of Locusts, which I'm gonna start reading, but I don't know how I feel it like in good conscience with recommending that you read this story and there's no conclusion. There's no conclusion. I did look at the back of this book to see if it ends off on a cliffhanger, and it does, which means that there was intention of writing another book. However, there just hasn't been one released. It seems as though she is working on other series. So, I know I'm still new, but if you've been here long enough, you know that I really don't really care for rating systems. If the book sounds interesting enough to me, I'm going to read it. The way I read books is I love it, I liked it, I didn't like it. I loved this book. And what's so frustrating to me is that it has amazing reviews on Goodreads. And there's just no conclusion. There's just no conclusion. So, hey Becca, hey girl. So, just this is just between you and I, right? I promise I won't tell anybody. But when are we gonna get the next book, girl? When are we gonna get it? Please let me know. Let me know. I promise I won't tell anybody. But like if I have something to look forward to, then like, if you want my advice, read it at your own risk. I didn't lose track of all the books that I was supposed to be reading in my November TBR. Next, we have River Mama by Zalika Reed Benta. I borrowed this book from the library, but I also borrowed it on Libby as well. And as I mentioned to you, if you didn't watch my November TBR, my friend Tamika did the narration for this book. And I'm so happy and I'm so proud of her. So freaking proud. She's actually in that new movie on Netflix. If I don't remember the name of it, and I actually haven't even gotten a chance to watch it yet, but I will pop it up here. It's the one with Christina Milian. She's the one with the braids. Yes. So anyways, if you're into mythology, folklore, and you want to learn about like Afro-Caribbean culture, this book is really good, but it is, of course, set in Toronto. Tamika did an amazing job with the narration for this book. If you want to know what authentic, like, Toronto slang sounds like, well, present-ish day, because I don't even think my mom and her friends sounded like this, but she does an amazing job of that, depicting that. I don't think I've ever mentioned this. I live in Toronto, so I love cultural references in books, but I also love reading about where I'm from. So this was so fun. I just realized I didn't tell you what this book is about. This book follows Alicia, the main character, and her friends Mars and Heaven. Alicia has been sent on a quest to find River Mama's comb. River Mama is a deity. She's a river deity. So she's the goddess who oversees all of the rivers in the world. I don't know what she would be in other cultures, but in like Caribbean and Jamaican culture, that's who she is. This book reminded me of Percy Jackson and the Olympians with the quest, like being sent on a quest and being given a time limit to get down to the bottom of finding this artifact, this object. Just like how Percy had to find Zeus's lightning bolt in Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was fun. It was a very, very quick listen. Well, not a quick listen, but this would be a quick read because it's not even 230 pages. And it has my favorite type of edges, deckled edges. I think Io is the one who mentioned that to me in my previous video because I couldn't remember what were these called. But anyways, so like I mentioned, if you are into folklore, mythology, you want to learn more about Afro-Caribbean culture placed in Toronto, definitely a really great read. There's even a map inside of here so you can like follow along. Next, we have our thriller. And I don't think that this book needs any introduction, but we have Razorblade Tears by Samuel Anthony Cosby. I mean, S.A. Cosby, because I don't know that man. I don't know this man. I don't know this man. This book follows Ike Randolph and Buddy Lee Jenkins. They are the fathers of Derek and Isaiah. Derek and Isaiah were their sons. They were a married couple and they were murdered in cold blood. Ike and Buddy Lee Jenkins were the duo that I did not see coming. These two are ex-cons and they are about that life and they will do anything to get down to the bottom of who murdered their sons. This story starts off a little slow, but it does pick up relatively quickly. I have said this before. I said the same thing for my review on All the Sinners Bleed. If you are somebody who has an issue with conversations about race, and if you also have issues with conversation about sexuality, about the LGBTQ and things of that nature, you may not enjoy this book. One thing that I realized is that S.A. Cosby's books surround tough topics that are just not for everybody. But I enjoyed this book. I still think All the Sinners Bleed is my favorite of the two, but it still was action-packed. I pretty much enjoyed everything about this book aside from all the cussing. I think that S.A. Cosby's favorite cuss word is MFer. If I had to take a shot for every time he used the word in this book, y'all would have to bring me to the hospital for alcohol poisoning, for sure. Buddy Lee was definitely the comedic relief in this book for me. I think I laughed a little bit too hard at the violence though. And like, I'm starting to believe that something is wrong with me. Like, it wasn't right. But like I said, if you like thrillers, I believe this would be considered more so like a crime thriller. Don't mind a lot of bit of violence. Then you may enjoy this book. I'm definitely looking forward to reading more of S.A. Cosby's work. It's so easy to forget about books that you don't own. When they say out of sight, out of mind, that's the truth. I read an unconditional... What is the name of that book? I completely forgot that I read An Extraordinary Union by Alyssa Cole. That's another historical romance novel. That was a really, really good book. I will pop the video right here and the timestamp right here, going over what that book is about and my thoughts on it. It was a really, really good book. If you're into historical romance and you have yet to read that book, you definitely have to read it. It is book 1 in the Loyal League trilogy. I'll pop all 3 books up on the screen. Check it out when you get a chance. So it seemed like all the girls were reading Model Home by River Solomon, and I wanted to read Model Home, but it wasn't available at my library. So instead I went to see if there were any other books in their catalog that I might be interested in reading, and I stumbled upon Sorrowland. Sorrowland is a very interesting book, and I think that I would do a terrible job of trying to sum it up on my own. So I'm just going to read the synopsis for you, and then we'll get into my thoughts. Vern, 7 months pregnant and desperate to escape the religious compound where she was raised, flees for the shelter of the woods. There she gives birth to twins and plans to raise them far from the influence of the outside world. But even in the forest, Vern is a hunted woman. Forced to fight back against the community that refuses to let her go, she unleashes incredible brutality far beyond what a person should be capable of, her body wrecked by inexplicable and uncanny changes. To understand her metamorphosis and to protect her small family, Vern has to face the past and more troublingly, the future outside of the woods. Finding the truth will mean uncovering the secrets of the compound that she's fled, but also the violent history in America that produced it. This book was very strange. It was strange. You can tell the influences in people's lives based on how they tell stories, especially when there is a religious narrative. I find that in S.A. Cosby's books as well. This book covers a range of different topics from sexuality, religion, corruption. It was just it was thought provoking. It definitely made me think. And it was one of those stories that you just don't know what to expect, like at all. I didn't know what to expect, but it just made me want to keep reading because I was like, it's like, what is actually happening? You know? I enjoyed this book and it has piqued my interest into reading more of Rivers Solomon's books. If it sounds like something that you might be interested in, I say give it a go. You have nothing to lose. And of course, we have our holiday reads, which I will not be talking about in this video because I literally just talked about them. But I read Love in Winter Wonderland by Abiola Bello, The Christmas Guest by Peter Swanson, and You Make It Feel Like Christmas by Tony Shiloh. And that is it. I'm done talking for the day. And there's still daylight outside. Yes, yes, yes. I swear I can never get to filming on time. I can never get to filming on time. So shout out to me for getting this done before 3 p.m. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know down in the comment section some of your thoughts. What were some of the books that you read for the month of November? And do you have a TBR for the month of December? Because I know I don't. Can't do that to myself again. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, as always, I appreciate you all so much and I will catch you in the next one. God willing. Bye.